Okay, now I don't know if we are live. Yes, finally. Took a while. Sorry about that. Some delay on the internet connection here. But here we are, and I see some people are waiting already, which is great. Well, sorry you had to wait, but that's how it is. Luke and Mom, Curtis, and all the good people are here. That's awesome to see. I'm just going to give it a few seconds so that people can join the chat. It's this is going to be one of the conversations. We have some conversations here, wonderful conversations. Some people will say, "Oh, get to the point." But then again, those people don't really get the point because this is not one of those videos that you will see on social media now for people with no attention span. This is a chat, a conversation that we are having. Some people call it a podcast. I guess that's okay as well. But we do have a topic normally. So, hi there, Laura, Margot. Um, Yeah, wonderful. Congratulations with reaching 200, or was it 250 subscribers there, Luke and Mom. That was wonderful to see that you had to take a bath in that cold, icy river, as you promised to do. Okay, so the division game, which I'm not playing. I refuse to play the division game. But that's very negative for the algorithm, isn't it? No, I have some hair in my face. Not the beard, but the one from the top. This one hanging down. Okay. So if you use division, then the algorithm will love you. But that's not only what's happening. And people complain about the algorithm. But at this point, the algorithms are quite advanced, I would say. And what they are doing is that they are telling us a lot about people. Because what is the algorithm? It's a mirror of people. What do people want to spend time on? You know? So people like division. And I've said before that if you find common ground in something that you hate, that's how you can get big on social media. There are people doing only that. There's a guy will be suggested to me all the time, and he's reacting to, which is basically being a parasite, but anyway, reacting to these girls in the gyms, complaining about, oh, you're disturbing me while I'm filming myself, and so on. And that's just benefiting from the division and anger and frustration. So yeah, he has a point, but now it's basically what he's doing, and that's, I guess, how he's making a lot of money. Well, you have a president now in the USA who used that to win an election. Division. Well, I'm not saying that the other part did not use division. Of course they did, but they were not as good at that as he is. Your Trump, of course. And I will say that, yeah, Trump is a perfect example, actually, because I'm always going to try my best to be thoughtful, nuanced, objective. I'm only human, so sometimes it's difficult, but I'm going to do my best. And When you talk about, and this is something I have discovered, which I find interesting, when you talk about something that people are emotionally invested in the negative way or the positive way, you get hate from both sides if you're being nuanced and objective. So I knew this, of course, and I'm I have a few videos that are bleeding my main channel, because they're objective and nuanced, and people are so tribal, and they want you to say what they are not thinking but feeling. Not going to do that, but then also you do lose subscribers, you get a lot of dislikes and all of that. And people will write things like, "Oh, I don't like this, I will unsubscribe." My response is always, I do not respond to that, but if I did, I would write, "Well, how will I sleep at night?" so so it's like, um, that video that was on Saturday, on the main channel this Saturday, just a few days ago. Um, Having a nuanced look, a balanced look at some of the things, and I think probably the most important thing that the new government in the USA is doing, having a balanced and nuanced look at that, is going to make you disliked, because people want you to either say that Trump will save the world, or Trump will be a disaster for everything, and he's basically Hitler. So they want you to choose one of those two, um, which is ridiculous. And we should be better than that. We should be acting to the best of our abilities as adults and not little kids. Well, actually, little kids do behave in a much better way than most adults these days, I would say. So, yeah, that's how it is, And I'm not playing the division game. Other people will be doing that, and they will mainly be doing that to make money off of the clicks and the views. So I have been watching, right wing news commentary, left wing news commentary, and the very few in between. There are not that many of us left that try to not take a stance, but just try to use some common sense. Well, of course, they all claim to use common sense, but they are not using common sense. They are just using their feelings. So what I've noticed is that, and I I have mentioned this briefly before, those left-wing news commentary YouTube channels and on other platforms as well, all they are doing now is criticizing Trump on and on and on again. That's all they're doing. I mean, there are other things happening in the world, and it's not like everything that comes from that new administration is going to be bad. Even if you're a raging leftist, you can't honestly say that everything is bad. But that's all they're doing, and they are doing that. They are doing that because of the money. And they might claim, no, this is just our duty, and so no, you're doing it to make money, because if you've been playing the division game for a little while, that's how you make money. You're not going to make money if you're saying, like, well, the new administration under Trump is doing a lot of things now that will be foolish. It's foolish, and it's not going to benefit the USA. the tariffs are going to probably make prices go up within the USA. That's an objective analysis. You don't have to be a professor in economics to understand that. But there are some good things as well. There are some good things that they are trying to do. If you're saying that, you're not going to be liked. You're not going to be getting a lot of support because you're getting the hate from both sides. And I'm going to see comments in the chat now claiming that tariffs will not make prices go up. But that was just an example. I've done this many times before. I am sorry if I'm tricking some people, but I'm trying to illustrate the point here. So, yeah. Now, so that's how it is. It's do I have some other examples? Yeah, the climate. It's my oldest and most used example, and I can't help but using that example. Here we get yeah, okay. So people want you to say either that climate change is because of human activity, or climate change has nothing to do with human activity, right? And none of those two statements can be true. If you use some logic and common sense, none of those two statements can be true because there must be a degree of, it must be a percentage in between. It must logically be from a very, very little to very, very much, somewhere in between, But that's, first of all, I think that actually a scary big part of the population, they do not understand. Actually, their IQ is too low to understand proportions and portions, like percentage, and so there is that. But it's amazing. I'm seeing the comments now. This is not about climate change. It's an example. If I'm saying, okay, I'll give you a true statement. I'll give you a true statement. Sorry, human activity has some impact on climate change. And that's a true statement. It must be, because it can't be zero. Well, some people will think it's zero, but then you don't know nature. You've never seen, and you probably haven't traveled much. So it's going to be some, but saying some, and this is if you listen to proper scientists, they won't tell you, climate change is purely because of human activity. They will not say that. They will say that we think that it's somewhere along, we have these numbers here. That's our best guess at this point, but this is complex. That they will typically say things like that. Again, nuanced and balanced, because they know that they can't go out there like a reporter in Fox News or CNN and make blunt, stupid statements. They can't do that because then they will probably lose their job. And then you have politicians and these, mainstream media and alternative media, YouTubers and so on, saying stupid things. Now, Yeah. Yes, yes. Underachiever. Well, um, nice nickname there. But you're saying that you're a forestry engineer and your ecology teacher or teachers all said the same. Um, let's see here. I'm trying to get to the chat now. I'm trying to get the context. So let's see here. Now, yeah. Now, people need to do research. I probably said that, used that term myself, but it's like I think we should not say do your own research, because doing research is not using the internet to gather information. Oh, it can be if you're doing research on the internet, like about the internet or about things. Well, difficult to explain really, but doing research on, let's say we were talking about climate. If you do your own research on climate, you're not doing your own research on climate, because what that means is that you actually go out there, you take samples, you observe. It's your job, you know. What we are talking about really when we say do your own research is gathering information, which is a different thing. So yes, Butterstuff says when researching on the internet, you will always find the answer you want and not the actual truth. That is true, especially if you're using a like Google. Most people use Google, and Google is um, two different people will not get the same results if they're logged into Google, because it will give you more of the same. It's an algorithm that will basically it creates an echo chamber, but also it's pushing some agendas. Um, Google is politicized. Um, so I always say don't Google it. Try to use an objective and neutral search engine. Um, yeah. Yes, underachievers. Science avoids bias at all costs. And I think people should show some respect when it comes to these proper scientists, because most people, they don't realize how much work they put into what they're doing, you know. Yeah. So but again, you know, these researchers, they're not going to get millions of views on social media when they go out there with their statements, because their statements are not sensationalist. Their statements are not going to make headlines. So it goes through and it's filtered and changed by, for instance, the politicians in the, you know, United Nations, well, these globalist organizations. And then that's what both mainstream media and alternative media will be using. And then the proper scientists, they're sitting there in their offices and shaking their head, you know. So, now, if we go to the very extreme, and this is a little bit funny, if we go to the very extreme, you will have And what this has for some reason been suggested to me on Facebook. I shouldn't spend time on Facebook, but I have lately, I must admit, because I've been bored, actually. Can you imagine? Yeah. Um, but these people, the Young Earth movement, and also the Flat Earth movement and all that, and it is, you have to wonder if they are doing this, making these ridiculous claims to just because they want the clicks and the views. I'm pretty certain at this point that some of these flat earthers, they're doing it just for the attention. I hope. But these young earth people, they are, it's Christian this, Christian that, and I think they actually believe it. Um, and the claims they're making are so divisive and so sensationalist that you're so tempted to respond, because it's also very idiotic. And then they get the views, then they get the clicks, and they see that, and they make money from that, and they keep doing it, of course. So we really should just ignore these people, but people don't. People give them all the attention. That's how Trump won. Well, not well, there are many more things going into that, but there's an element of that in what happened there. So yeah, the hollow earth. I like that one. Do we have a flat earther here? Or someone just making a joke there? I don't know. The moon landing deniers, yeah, that's a funny one. Now, conspiracy theories, like the proper ones, that's fun. There's a lot of fun, the moon landing is, I'm not saying that's a conspiracy theory, but it's much easier to believe that. I mean, they could have faked it. Well, I don't think they could have, because of how the real world works, but it's much more credible, and then you have chemtrails was mentioned here, and that's basically a question of proportions, because you can manipulate the clouds in a limited area. There's a patent for that, and so on. But then you have to understand portions. How much would it take to manipulate weather over an entire continent, for instance? Is that possible now? So it's a game, or it's a question of portions. Is that technically possible? Are there resources to do that? And so on. So I would rather say that's not a conspiracy theory, because you can actually make a cloud rain. No one is denying that, but can you make a hurricane, a vast hurricane? Is that possible? Now, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to say yes or no, but I would say that's a borderline on the conspiracy theory thing. And then again, I have noticed that that's not what's getting the clicks. Is it? So, yeah. Now, do we have another here? Kat is asking, if they went to the moon, why have they not been back? That's a good question, but I think money is the answer there. They did struggle with funding in the space program for decades, and I think they would still have struggled. Politicians, they did not see the reason why we should do that. But then here comes suddenly this South African, um, and you know, Elon Musk, and kickstarts the whole thing, you know. So yeah, butter stuff also, yes, good point there. And I have read the same. The technology was not safe. That's what I've heard. What I've heard is that when they sent people to the moon, I'm just going to say that because I believe they did. It was not ethically. It was not ethical. They took chances and they risked the lives of those people. They did. They won't admit that, but I think they found out that the chances of people dying was just too. It was just too much, so they wouldn't risk it again. And money. Yeah, it was only a matter of time before someone died. And yes, then the two shots really sealed the deal. I remember watching on television that shuttle that blew up with those people in it. And after that, it was a huge setback. Yeah, and it was such a huge shock. I was not very old then, and I still remember that. So I think, if you want to know, I'm so old now, very old, 52 years old, and two events shaped shaped my view of the world more than anything else, like international events. The first one, or one of them, is the Chernobyl accident. Sitting there as a child, watching the cloud, not well, on TV. The map, they were mapping the toxic radioactive cloud where it was moving. Just sitting there, and my parents, they did nothing. We were just sitting there and waiting. Oh, will it come to Norway? And then we were saved by the weather and the wind. So it took it well, it did hit the north of Norway, So that accident, and also that shuttle that blew up. And I think that, especially on the right, it's very popular to say that nuclear power will save us. And I'm very skeptical, very skeptical. How safe is it when you have these accidents happening? Now, Chernobyl was a very old technology, of course. It was a communist installation, but it has happened after that as well. So, yeah. And one thing that people don't know is that it happened here in Norway, at one of the facilities. It's a research facility not far from where I live, actually. And there was a leak into the big hall where people were working. They said nothing, and they just pretended like nothing, and people were exposed. Working there were exposed to radiation. And just recently, just a few months ago, this was um, what do you call it? It was we could read it in the newspaper, um, and it's many years since that happened. But I don't think it was classified because it was a private company that was responsible for the accident. But when that can happen here in a research facility like that, they what they did there was that they were testing the safety of reactors. So in a smaller scale, like they scale it down and then they test it, and they do that. They were paid to do that by companies when they are planning reactors in other countries, and they would say, "Oh, it's safe," you know, but then again, they were just faking the results. So many of the reactors, I suppose in Europe mostly, maybe, well, I don't know. Maybe they were selling their research to many countries on other continents as well. I don't know, but it's like it's based. Many of those reactors are based on faked research, and people don't know that, and they think it's so safe. Um, and Yeah, so I don't think nuclear power is the future. Um, Yeah, well, if you want to know, I think that the key is to reduce our how much electric power we use. Um, but now with AI and the new coming technology, quantum computers, there's going to be a lot more, a lot more. Um, and I think people don't realize the risk involved. Still, the you can go up in the northern Norway, and you shouldn't eat reindeer because, well, they say it's safe, but you can measure it's still radioactive up there. Um, so yeah, yeah, it's the thing is, and this is what the people in power don't want you to know. They don't want you to think like this. They don't want you to realize that you, Rennie, exactly. You can live off grid. It's not difficult. Even in Norway, it's not difficult. You can disconnect from the grid and you would be okay. Now, I'm a big fan of, and I know people are stealing my content, so I'll mix it up a little bit. The panels, solar on your roof, maybe, or in your garden, private, small, and also wind generators. I had one on my boat. Um, Safe. It kept the batteries fully charged all of the time. You can do that in your garden or on your roof as well. It's not difficult. It's not expensive. People can do that and they can disconnect from the grid. And also you need a wood burning stove, of course. But that's not beneficial to the people in power who want to dependent on that electricity, and they will be selling nuclear power because that is the only way to do it in the future. Solar and wind is not going to sorry, it's not going to do it, is it? Because they will need so much power to for the AI and the quantum computers. So they're going to have to use nuclear power, and there will be accidents. The accidents, I don't know. Maybe. Are you going to trust your government on that? I won't. So, especially I suspect among many of the people in my audience here, they would like more nuclear power. I'm telling you, it's not the answer. It really is not the answer. The answer is what makes you independent of the grid. Independent of the grid. EarthLab USK says nuclear is relatively safe. How many accidents happen? Nuclear, when it comes to nuclear being relatively safe, it's not enough. It needs to be 100% safe. And it's not. And also, it's like pissing in your pants to keep warm. Because what are you going to do with the waste? You're just moving that problem forward. There is another thing that people don't think about. At one point in the future, there will not be enough people to maintain civilization. That's just how it seems to be. That's the direction we are heading as a species. And at that point, when there are not enough people to maintain these reactors, things will start happening. And you will see a massive amounts of reactors just, what do you call it, a meltdown or whatever it's called. So, yeah, but I'm going to leave that topic now. It's not difficult to understand that if you want to be independent and free, you need to be independent of the grid. It doesn't take, that is the way forward if you want to be free. And I really don't know why people are so reluctant to go that way. It's part of a bigger discussion, isn't it? Because the grid is one thing, like the power grid. You have the information grid also, and I think that, do you really want to be dependent on your government, on big corporations? I don't want that. So, each to his own or her own, but I don't think that the way we are heading now is the right way. It's just making people unhappy and disconnected from nature. So Butterstuff says, I took my off-grid van out all winter, solar panels. I had my gaming computer, diesel heater, and a small kitchen. It was nice, but I had to come back to the city for work. Yeah. Now, solar panels and batteries, it's not complicated. It really is not complicated. Yeah, well, basically, I think what this is about is what kind of life you want to have. Now, I'm not saying we should, disconnect from civilization altogether. Like, for instance, we would want to have access to medical treatment and social media. But We should be in a position where we can pick and choose what we want to use from the modern, so-called modern world. And the rest should be just being disconnected as much as possible, being disconnected from the grid, not being dependent on the grid, not being dependent on all of this nonsense. Here's a scary development here in Norway. And this is coming from the EU, of course. And our politicians, the traitors, are. Norway is not part of the EU, but they're doing what the EU is saying, basically, or more or less. Not always, but one thing that they are going to try to do is to make first older wood burning stoves illegal. And then they're going to make wood burning stoves illegal altogether. So yeah, I will be an outlaw. And also another thing, a statement that I saw from one of these people was that he said, people don't need access to electric power all of the time. Oh, really? How convenient that they have installed smart meters so that they can steer and direct and close down parts of or the entire supply of electric power to your house or your flat. How convenient. Now, there is no such smart meter in my house because I refuse that. But this all comes together, doesn't it? And they're also talking about having a device on your chimney that will measure the amount of smoke, basically, that goes up into out of your chimney. And my honest response to all of this, because all of this is taking away your independence. I get it when it comes to the environment. Oh, thank you so much, Kat. Thank you. That's very kind of you to say as well. Thank you. I get the whole thing with the environment. That if we care about the environment, well, stop destroying the forests. Stop the fishing in the fjord here, which has made it basically into a lifeless desert. Stop those things. Leave nature. Nature is a healer. It's healing you. It's healing you, and it's also healing the world. Stop all of that, and leave people to live a natural life. And I will say this to those politicians that, typically politicians saying that, well, we're going to put a measurement device on your chimney so that you will pay extra for the smoke. They can go and fondle themselves in a dark room on their own. Yeah. Some people would say they can just go and fuck right off. Also. So, yes, that's what I would say. That's the kindest thing I can say about those people. That's my message to those people. Yeah, I'll stop right there when it comes to all of that. Okay. Oh yeah, that video on Bjorn Outdoors. There's a link in the video description to that channel. Why did they cut down those trees on the campsite? Because they were idiots, mindless idiots. Yeah, yeah. So I'm going up there, and I'll try to tidy up. And uh, there's some distance to walk, so that's probably why they didn't bring their rubbish back. Um, but I'll if I take one of these big bags, plastic bags, and I fill it up with rubbish, it will be done in just a few days, I'm sure. I maybe there's like five or six of those bags. Maybe I can drag two of them back um, at a time. And I know that structure that they had built, or whatever it was, I'll cut it down, and the string is dangerous for wildlife, and I'll gather all the string. I'll bring that back. Um, no, I don't think it was the construction crew building the platform that left that mess. I don't think so. But yeah, I might cut up the trees and store them inside the hut, so that next fall it will be dry. If people don't take those out and throw them around, which they probably will do, yeah. No, I don't think that was a blind for hunting, because there is no outlook into other areas from that position. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Butter stuff. Tons of wood on the ground, but people always think they have to cut green trees. Yeah. The worst problem there is actually the glass, because there are people walking there with dogs. So how do I get that glass that they had cracked on the inside the hut on the stone floor and then stepped on? How do I get all of that up? I'm actually considering bringing a battery vacuum cleaner up there, but yeah, I don't know how to. Or maybe I can make a sign: "Don't bring your dogs in here." Hmm. Uh, yeah, I can sweep it, but with dogs, if on that uneven rocky surface, and you only need like actually the small ones, the tiny fragments of glass are worse than the bigger ones, because then dogs get them in their paw, and you can barely see it. They start limping. They get an infection. Yeah. So I'm thinking first sweeping it, and then a vacuum cleaner. I do have a battery. No, it's on. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So a bit of a project there, given to me by the kind people who thought it was a good idea to cut down those trees, get drunk, and shatter glass on the ground. Yeah, kingdoms and kobolds. Breaking the glass on the ground is such an asshole move. I agree. It's like what can we do to make this place even worse than we have made it already? It's like that, you know. Yeah, I was actually thinking about that, putting down a new floor, but that's even more work, you know. Um, yeah. But then again, that video on Bjorn Outdoors has much more views than any of the other videos there. Just proves my point, you know, this, well, that's not really about division, but you know, it was my heartfelt reaction. I think anyone who's a decent person, and I try to be to the best of my abilities, would react like that, seeing that. So, yeah, I would like to have put a camera there, but then again, if I put a camera there, I will be hated again by the local community here because, yeah, I wonder why. um, yeah, that was the, you know, I live in a small place here, and there are people here that are just bad people, not like dangerous people, but idiots. There are sadly lots of idiots here. So at that instance, when I was shot after they by some of the idiots, they blamed me, didn't they, for being there? And these are the people who have never had to face real consequences in life. I mean, now I come from the city, actually, not like city, big city, like the hood. um, but if where I come from, if people behaved like that there, they would have been beaten up. Like, yeah. So, yeah. But okay, I'll just stop right there with all of that. Um, yeah, some people did write in the comments there, were they migrants? No, no, just local people, you know. So, yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know what to do actually when it comes to alerting people here because, as I said, I can, there's a Facebook group for the local community and I can post the video there. But then again, my experience with the local people here is like they might start blaming me then because there are probably lots of people here who knows who did that, and they feel that they have been exposed, and they hate that, you know. So I don't care what people here think about me, but um, you know, maybe I'll just do it, and they can go and fuck themselves, all of them. I said it again. Yeah. So, okay. I think I'll stop right there. I'll go and have my breakfast, and we'll talk soon. Okay. Have a wonderful evening or day. Well, yeah, as I said, we'll talk soon. Bye bye.